This review contains spoilers and also a discussion that contains elements of depression, mental health issues, and suicide. Welcome to the 21st Century Film Club. We'll now be reviewing Aftersun. What do you guys think of the film?
I liked it. I really liked it. It's not a film I'd want to watch again just because of the tones. It's very dark and very deep. It's quite sad actually until the end. But I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well acted. Story is just very poignant and well told, just slow in the right moments. I really liked how there were scenes. I'm sure I'll get into it later on, but just the pacing of it was very well done. And yeah, I just thought it was like a beautifully told story.
Yeah, it was really different to the kind of films I normally watch. At the start I was a bit unsure, but by the end I was like fully invested, and I thought it was really like well told, the way they had like the film camera and like the real life kind of mixed in together. It's obviously very deep, very emotional. But yeah, I really enjoyed it.
I agree with Stephen. I think the pace was really important to the film, and almost at the start when it was really slow, you're sort of expecting something to go wrong. Most films and most stories, they always tend to have, their dilemma that has to be solved, and this one didn't really conform to that kind of storyline, in that you've got to have something that gets solved. You really do just get told this story the way it panned out.
Yeah.
There were great shots throughout. I think some of the transitions were so beautiful, especially when there was some, I'm not sure if they're paragliding or when the reflection in the pool was
So
a
good.
really good one, and the one where Sophie, older Sophie, is in her flat and it transfers back to Callum in the airport with his video recorder. I thought those transitions stood out to me so well, because you use them to connect these long shots that I think the film wouldn't have worked without these long shots, because they were really trying to draw it out and show you just how the emotions can be depicted through the actual camera.
The bits about, I think it was Cleopatra killed herself by a snake, by an asp, that's very famous. When I first watched it, I thought in a way it was just to do with the mythology of the place, and they had that like ancient Greek vibe going on. It was all very holiday feelings in a very interesting resort, which was an interesting setting. But I think the more you think about it, the more there's just like these little hints of everyday suicide, and I think that speaks to us as a culture where it's a taboo to talk about suicide still. Yet, I'm going to kill myself is a common thing to say as a joke, and lots of things to do with suicide are very common to joke about. It's a part of our culture as well as all death. So I think thinking about the film, you start realising throughout the whole film it was suggesting suicide. So it is perhaps a film you could watch again and I don't think it's a film where they want you to understand things. Not at all.
Yeah. I remember leaving the cinema just emotionally just drained from it. I was just like, oh, it's so sad, because the first half an hour or so was just you showing a good relationship between Sophie and Callum, and it's just like, oh, this is a good holiday. They clearly have good chemistry, the actors, and their characters themselves have good chemistry. But obviously it's clear like Callum is like suffering from depression, and just suffering from, it's not really told like what's caused it. I guess it's just kind of meant to seem like he's just the divorce and the separation from not seeing his daughter regularly, like it's caused it, but it's not really like pinpoint as that reason. But just him suffering throughout the film as the film goes on, and just him slowly losing his mind. And I thought the shot, it's like a really long shot, like this 3-minute shot towards the start, where young Sophie's sleeping, and all you hear is like her just like breathing, and then him Callum outside just doing like his stretches or whatever's going outside. Tai Chi, and I think it's smoking a cig as well, and that scene goes on for like 2-3 minutes, and I remember just being, oh my god, this scene's amazing. it was so good the way they did it, and yeah, just emotion, just yeah, so deep.
I know what you mean by emotionally draining. That's one thing I felt at the end. I think I turned it off and then thought, wow, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
How did you react to the ending of the film?
Yeah, I think that one of the last scenes where there's that Queen song in the background. I can't remember exactly what
Under
song
Pressure.
it was. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah, and it's like them two dancing. Then it kind of flicks to Sophie in the future, and she's like trying to like keep hold of her dad. Then like the dad goes away. I think that's kind of where it really hit me, because like I'd felt quite emotional before, but it was that scene where I was like, kind of like the heaviness of it kind of hits the most.
It's really good because they took away the music and just played the words. I think they took away the music, so it really, the words really hit you as that scene went on.
The vocal track on that, where they intersperse that throughout the strobe lighting scene,
Yeah.
was really good. It was confusing, but equally you knew what was going on.
I think another quite powerful scene was the one where Sophie came back after a long day and was saying how she'd had like a really good day, but then she was like tired, and it was kind of reflected in the dad, and he like spat at his reflection. I thought that was quite a moving scene as well. Like it's almost like he was scared of her turning into him, and like the way he was feeling. I thought that was quite a poignant scene as well.
I think you're completely right. He's scared, so scared of her turning into him as a kind of deadbeat character. And I think a few things in the film suggested he was a deadbeat, but it wasn't very clear, because here he is on holiday in an inclusive resort. I mean, lots of people can't afford that now, never will be able to afford that. So he's given his daughter a lovely time. So he must be, in one way, it's just a sign of his depression, that he can't even recognise that he's providing for his daughter in a way that lots of parents, even together, can't really do. Not that materialism or holidays are the most important things, but he's creating a beautiful time with her, and he just really sees, do you know when she's talking about singing lessons, he really sees this as a failure for him, that he can't pay for her singing lessons, and she makes kind of almost like a teenager kind of comment, being like, oh well, you can't even afford to do it. You know, which the snottiness, which to be fair I'm an expert at, but the snottiness she has like that. But and a lot of us have probably been like to our parents, oh, why can't you get me this? So and so has this and that. So she's really just being normal. But for him, that hurts him so much that he takes, in a way, he takes his own life due to financial pressures.
Yeah.
You know, so he's under that pressure as a father, as a figure, to provide. And you do want to, you see the whole film as like a letter to her dad saying, you gave me this amazing holiday. You gave me so much, and I never wanted anything more but you. You know, it's actually very emotional. Yeah.
So, hard question. Who is the film about?
I just think it is. So it's both their birthdays, right? It's like, I think it's like her birthday 2 days before his birthday, or something like that. I think it's just meant to be centered around that, and then I don't think he sets out to, if this is how you interpret the film, to kill himself throughout the holiday. I just think his emotions throughout the trip just, I don't know, just spiraled, I guess, and that led him to do it. I don't know.
What do you think, Ella?
I feel like there's a few different aspects, because there's the whole kind of coming of age thing with Sophie, like the fact that she sees the teenagers and she kind of wants to be like them and spend time with them, and then she also kisses that boy. So that's kind of one aspect. And there's the story of the dad, and like how he kind of spirals throughout the holiday. And then it's like both of them as well, and like almost how she's a reflection of him in some aspects, but then quite different in other ways. So I feel like there's a few like interweaving storylines. So it's quite hard to pinpoint like who it actually is about, because it's about like their relationship and about them as individuals, but also as them kind of being the same person in a few ways as well, I think.
Yeah, no, I really like that, them being the same person, and I think that's why they had some of this ancient Greek mythology going on all over kind of the place in the background, because in that it's all about wearing masks, having two sides of yourself, kind of like that Gemini type thing. And for them, he is kind of the hunter, the athletic body on screen. She's they just, to me, felt like ancient Greek characters in certain bits, and that's that that father-daughter relationship they have. Is she's coming of age, he's angry god, you know. I just felt that was quite an interesting dynamic they had going on. They were kind of more universal because of the mythology, but I think that was also just to throw you off a bit from some of the suicide kind of. But in ancient Greek mythology, it's very common for a character who's heartbroken, who's devastated, to kill themselves. It's just more part of their mythology, especially with women, actually. So to me, that, again, the classical world of tragedy of Roman and Greek and Egyptian, it's the opposite of Christianity, really, where in Christianity it's a huge sin to kill yourself, controversially, and in this I think it kind of, the mythology offered up another world, like in Japan or other countries.
Perspective that you almost have a bit of sympathy for, I would say.
Yeah.
Not just a bit, quite a bit, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, the whole sinful aspect to it in Christianity. Who do you blame? Who is the person at fault? Whereas in other cultures, like you've said in Japan and in Greek mythology, where it meant something to make that kind of sacrifice. Yeah.
There's nothing good about suicide, but there's no explanation or right answers or things that will just make everything make sense, and there's no one thing really that film suggests that caused him. There's not like one argument scene beforehand, and I think the nightclub, in a way, upon that reflection, is a red herring, because you want to think, oh, something happened in the nightclub.
Yeah.
You know, something happened then. He had a fallout, he had a fight with someone said you're a terrible father. Next day,
you were sort of waiting
he commits the act.
Like that one big argument.
Yeah, that
between
Eureka, why did he do it? But they don't give it to you, but they keep hinting that they're going to give it to you.
That's what I felt from the pace of the film the whole way through, was that it was all building up to something, and what you really find out at the end is that you were never building up to something in particular. You were just gauging his emotions slowly, and you started to see it more. You know, he made a comment on the boat about not knowing about how he would make it to 40. There were great pieces of dialogue.
That's such
throughout.
a red flag as well, you know, that I'm not going to make it to 40. Yeah.
It just felt like everything was slowly unravelling, but then re-ravelling itself, so that you couldn't quite latch onto something, and you couldn't quite bite on a particular interpretation.
It reflects her reminiscing over the period and trying, as an author, I kind of viewed her as an author doing these like recordings, and a journalist or a writer, and she's trying to construct a narrative about it to make sense. But even his daughter, she's either missing information because he wasn't with her throughout the whole holiday, you know, she was with her friends. In a way, the carpet, the rug, that scene about the money, affording it, also, I thought to myself, she doesn't know exactly what happened with anything on that holiday, sadly, behind her when she wasn't there. You know, you don't know what else was going on, how other people treated him on the resort. Because in a way it was odd, because everyone was quite nice to both of them. They were like, the Gilmore Girls are like the cool people in the resort. We're like, we're so much cooler than the other children and fathers, because, you know, he's Paul Mescal, so he's got a hot dad, basically. But
like, again, I was waiting for a scene where like she was going to get bullied by the girl. I was waiting for this sort of like, there's going to be a trigger. There's going to be something that like maybe the boy kind of bullies her or something. I don't know, just something. Yeah. It never sort of came, because like everyone was just sort of nice to her. And, like,
they were like aspirational, because she was like the cool girl almost very quickly, and he was a bit cooler than the other parents. So to me, that was really interesting, because from the outside you just think someone might have everything, have it all really, and in a way, I can't exactly remember how they explained his financial situation, but he has a beautiful daughter. He has quite a lot going in his life, and I think everyone at the resort would just assume he's an attractive young father. You know, you wouldn't really.
What did you think Callum's character felt about what would happen when they got home? Do you think that for him that escapism, being away in Turkey, was almost a reality, a moment of complete escapism, that when they would come back, whether they would go to the same place, of course, is unknown, but he said that he lived in London, she was in Edinburgh. I think when they go back, I think for him that's his most hellish moment, and he's just trying to divert away from that future that's not coming.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to come anyway.
Yeah, it's odd. No, he wears white. He wears white, so he's in blacks, and in the whole film he wears darker and darker colours until he's in all black all the time. And they also quite well with his body's a bit more covered. He just changes his fashion style throughout the whole film until the end, where he's in white, and I think most people's first thought would be he's wearing white, he's recovered, he's better. However, lots of evidence suggests that before someone kills himself, they're actually in quite a happy mood because they have that relief and they feel that escapist mood. So a lot of studies show that, and I definitely saw that straight away, that here he is happy for once, and part of you thinks with the structure of the film, oh, he's changed his mind, he's going to go home to England, he's had a great holiday, but instead it's that kind of perverse happiness from depression, where instead of
Clarity.
it's a clarity. Instead of being so depressed that you have that entire horrible future ahead of you and you have nothing left, for the first time in your life you have some sort of, or not in your life, in your long depression, your deep depression, you have some sort of sense of autonomy and control over your life. It is about control too. He can set the terms, and it seemed that everything was just very, as you say, unraveling, getting out of his control. His daughter, the symbolism of her puberty, she's now not his child. No, she's a person of her own.
Do you see in the scene when, like, I think the last scene when she's applying the sun cream to her back, and she's insistent, I'll do it myself. He, like, honestly, it's like, I don't need you anymore. Or, like, as if she's trying to say, like, I'm fine without you, but I guess, because in the first few times, like, he does it for her, and he does most things for her, and then I think there's a few other scenes like that where she sort of does things by herself at this point, and she's kind of learning that, she can provide for herself, and
I think they show that because they want her to regret. It's her as a character, as the author, regretting. So she's harsh on herself in this film, I think, because if you guys don't know, it's based on a true story with the own, like, director, writer. So she did go on a holiday, and similar tragic things with her father happened. So for her, the Aftersun, it's really her regret, and it's odd that I feel like, no, don't include that, it's not your fault, don't. But she definitely regrets it. Yeah.
And I feel like, as well as her pushing him away, there was like the karaoke scene where she signed them up to sing together, and he wouldn't do it. So I think it kind of shows that even though he was trying to always be there and, like, be the good father, there was those moments where he kind of was, like, pushing her away as well. Like, kind of shows both sides of it. It's not like just her growing up and becoming a teenager and, like, going through that and pushing her dad away. Like, even though he was trying his best to kind of maintain that relationship, it kind of showed he was fighting his demons, and he couldn't fully hide that from his daughter, I guess.
It was so sad. It's just like, just do karaoke, just do it.
Yeah.
That song, it was in Bank of Dave. They did karaoke, Lose My Religion. So it's a karaoke song. But for them, as like a father and daughter, their thing is to do that song at karaoke. And all the other parents and families have, like, their happy, don't go broken my heart kind of songs, which is fair enough. And they have the cool, edgy, alternative song. But on the other hand, it just shows to me, that was a hint. He's always been depressed, and his daughter might just be at the age where she's figuring out that her father's alternative choices actually just mask kind of just this kind of indifference, and he's just a bit other than other people, and his daughter is a bit like that. So in a way, her redemption is socialising with the teenagers and fitting in, because she easily could have been a loner, but in the end he's the loner.
Yeah.
She's the one who fits in. And it, yeah.
What were some of the most poignant scenes for you?
Like I said, just that 2-minute scene where she's just in the bed and he's doing the tai chi thing, and that hit home for me. The scene towards the end where he's filming her at the airport and she's doing that hit home, because I think at that point you sort of know what's happened to him, or what's going to happen to him. And yeah, the karaoke scene as well. Just do the karaoke.
I think him sobbing.
Yeah.
Him sobbing uncontrollably, because I think he knows he's never going to see her again. So it's about his daughter. I don't think it was him crying about himself. I think it's him crying about her. And I think he honestly felt that he was doing her a favour. That's why he's in white, because he feels like, I've done something good. And he walks out into the sea, which is a bit like mythology. That was another very striking moment. But him sobbing, I thought that really warranted his Best Actor nomination. And to be honest, I thought his performance was equally good as Austin Butler's, which won the BAFTA last night. So I would happily have heard him win the BAFTA for lead actor, because I think he was, in my opinion, I would give it to Paul Mescal. But I think Austin Butler did a phenomenal job. But for that sobbing scene and the other scenes of depression,
it's hard to sort of determine a winner, because I guess they're two different stories, the Elvis and also it was Colin Farrell was also nominated, but they're all different performances, and they all portray different emotions. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the way Paul Mescal portrayed that character and portrayed his emotions was so well done and so well acted as well. And there's not like a lot of characters as well in that film. It's just mainly him and the daughter. So to not have a lot to work with as well, it was really well done.
I think it's really subtle acting as well, because there was never the reasons given for why he's in the mental state that he's in. There's never the reasons for the money issues. You don't find out what happened with him and his ex-wife. So it's so subtly acted that he still portrays those emotions so well, and you do know what happened at the end even though you don't see it. So I think that's a thing in itself, that he was able to articulate those emotions so well without you really knowing. And there is that scene as well when she's kissed the boy and then she tells her dad, and he's like, I want you to always be able to talk to me about these things and tell me about these things. Then obviously she'd never have the chance to tell him about those things as she grows up.
Yeah, and she's bisexual or a lesbian in the end, the daughter, and they did hint at that with the older girls. It seemed like she had a bit of a crush on one of the older girls who was nice to her, and she never gets to go through that process with her dad, which is really difficult,
especially after he basically said to her that he would always be there to discuss all of that, and that was really quite sad. I think another really sad scene was when they were in the mud baths and he was apologising for the night before, and it didn't really feel like he was apologising for his actual acts, what he did when he didn't leave a key for her to get in. It more felt like he was trying to explain more of the situation to her, but that all that could come out was an apology for the events that occurred, not necessarily his emotions or how he was feeling.
Which, it's that classic breakdown in communication due to depression, where you stop. If you can't tell someone I'm struggling, then really it's why talking therapy is one of the ways out of depression, because it is so much better to talk about your feelings. And that's why it's important to give people some sort of template or framework to be able to talk about their feelings, even if it's quite basic, because he never had anyone ask him a direct question to gauge his mental health. And that's something educationally this film can help with, that you just need to ask people. And I think, as is this classic thing, you need to get more than a fine or another monosyllabic response from the guys. But he definitely showed that symptom of losing the ability just to speak and the confidence to speak, and then he becomes so negative and insecure that he's just not speaking. Many films would have gone down the route where his appearance becomes way more dishevelled, and he like eats less, and he's not keeping up with his personal hygiene, you know, other signs of poor mental health. This film never went for that, and I felt that was interesting, and I felt like if you looked closer enough into the acting of Paul Mescal, you could see in his eyes and his stuff that I think most doctors, if he was in a GP appointment, would spot straight away, even if he is still in his shorts and t-shirts and sandals and he looks okay on paper, they would be able to read between the lines. And I think he gave that depiction of someone who's struggling, but isn't struggling so much that he's not wearing he's not wearing proper clothing, and he's just crawling out of bed, which you can see people are depressed in real life who are like that, and they're not easy to spot.
I think that's a really important juxtaposition that the whole film employs. It is a holiday in Turkey. He is in shorts and t-shirt. He is on a boat. He's in a mud bath. He's watching live music. He's in a pool. He's having a drink with his daughter. Everything points at what could be a really great time, a really positive moment for him and his daughter to bond, but they then bring it back to these scenes where it's dark, quiet, where he's on his own having a cigarette, when he's walking through the street, when he's walking into the ocean, and you really get that juxtaposition that tells you that it really is a lot that there is under the surface, and that if you might almost feel guilty that things are going so well on the outside that people don't necessarily see what's going on underneath.
He's so depressed he can't enjoy. You just can't enjoy holidays. If he won £1 million, if he won the lottery, he wouldn't be happy. You know, he's that depressed that good news is still bad news. All news is like bad news, and the only good news, as they show him wearing white, is, you know, the fact that he thinks it's now going to be over and his suffering will end, and perhaps his daughter's suffering will end, and the world will be a better place. All that negative, harmful thinking. So he's got that. That's the only good news for him in that whole film, is his daughter, almost saying goodbye to his daughter and everything. So it's truly a tragedy. But you're completely right. If you can't just look on. It's all about reading between the lines, the entire film with the ending, and that's why I think if it is a good film in that it makes you focus.